life and confidence coach Dianna Leeder, and this is my podcast, the Crave More Life Roadshow. It's here we talk about emotional hits and lovingly kicking our own asses to get through them. Just so you know, it always comes down to being your beautiful, sassy self, living and loving from you, no matter what. So join me to hear about the healing journeys of other women, and you just might become a DIY ass kicker too. Hey listeners, welcome back to the Roadshow. Today's guest is quantum healing practitioner and author R. Scott Holmes. You'll find Scott's full bio in the show notes. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Roadshow. I am thrilled to have holistic energy healing practitioner R. Scott Holmes with me today. Not only is Scott a talented healing coach, he truly embodies all he teaches. Listen up to learn about his amazing work and, most importantly, his why. I'm Dianna Leeder, host of the Crave More Life Roadshow podcast. I'm an intuitive coach and an energy practitioner who helps women use their voice to get what they want. I'm also the proud lead author of the Find Your Voice, Save Your Life book series on Amazon, including the award-winning editions Powerful Healers, Spiritual Stories, and Transcendent Men, Real Stories. The latter co-led with today's guest. Mr. Scott Holmes is someone I consider first as a friend and then as a colleague, which is pretty much how he rolls in the healing community. Why? Because he leads from the heart. Let me read you his bio. R. Scott Holmes is a quantum healing practitioner, transformational coach, and Amazon best-selling author whose work bridges science, spirit, and the human heart. A Reiki master teacher, polarity therapist, RISE teacher, if it's not supposed to be RYSE, perhaps.
It is, RISE.
Okay. Theta healer, universal white time healing practitioner, and certified Find Your Voice coach. Scott blends a decade of study with the hard-earned wisdom of lived experience. Scott's path into holistic healing began in the depth of loss. After a 20-year caregiving journey with his wife and multiply-impaired daughter and the passing of his wife of 39 years, he was guided into the world of energy, awareness, and transformation. Through this awakening, he discovered not only how to heal, but how to help others find meaning, freedom, and joy in their own lives. Through one-to-one sessions, teaching, hospice volunteering, and his monthly podcasts, Scott has held sacred space for countless professionals and seekers, helping them remember who they are and reconnect to their innate wholeness. His collaborations with Brave Healer Productions capture the essence of his journey, honest, heart-centered explorations of resilience, authenticity, and the alchemy of healing. When not teaching or writing, Scott can be found traveling the world with his wife Patti, exploring sacred sites, tasting local cuisines, climbing mountains, and meditating by the sea. Yoga, Qigong, and daily meditation keep him grounded in gratitude, curiosity, and wonder for this extraordinary life we get to live. So that's the formal stuff. Let's get down to the not so formal, the more fun stuff maybe. Scott and I met to co-lead Find Your Voice, Save Your Life for Transcendent Men, Real Stories. We call it the men's book since it was the very first in our circles. When the book was released, Scott actually drove from Boston to Toronto to gift me a large print of the book cover. We have since collaborated on many programs, workshops, and trainings. I'm so looking forward to going deep with Scott about his work, his commitment to human connection, his new book that is soon to be launched, and all he brings to the healing table. So welcome back to the Roadshow, Scott, and thank you for joining me. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. That was one heck of an introduction.
One heck of a guy. How's that?
So where are we today?
Where are we today?
What are we going to talk about today?
Oh, what are
Well,
we going to talk about? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm losing that, aren't I? Okay. So, what are we going to talk about? You have so many things to talk about. It was a
I
little
could,
difficult
I
picking one or two
it
because you get.
kind of is. Having retired from real work, having retired, I now have days that are filled with connections, writing, just doing everything. Whether it's working on writing projects, it's working on podcasts, it's working. Um, as the lead author with the book From Burnout to Burning Bright was much more of a commitment than I ever thought it would be. Um, at one point, I just had this overwhelm. So for anybody who's ever been involved in a collaboration, a month before we were about to start, I had 6 out of 25 authors. Six. And I'm just shaking my head. And it all came together. And I have one of the most extraordinary lineups of authors from Canada, US, uh, UK, Germany, and they have the breadth of modalities. They have the breadth of understanding. I have doctors. I have therapists. I have just about every which way but loose, and they talk about burnout, which is not one of those things that most of us want to really share.
Yeah,
Well,
let's keep that a little
burnout,
quiet.
we keep it quiet. Why? Because it's usually when we're at the worst point in our lives, where everything is a struggle. Uh, Probably a dozen, 15 of those authors, and they're all professional and then written in other books, have said that it was one of the hardest pieces they ever wrote, the chapter. And I'm thinking, why is that? Because they had to go deep again. You know, when you go through something and you heal, right? You figure, I got this. I got that. I healed that. That was years ago. And then all of a sudden you turn around and go to write it, and it starts pouring out again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And those feelings, that depth of despair, that depth of overwhelm, that depth of I can't do this anymore, just comes spilling out. And it's such a helpless feeling when you're in the depths of that.
Yeah, it really is. You're absolutely right. I remember that feeling well with my first. Absolutely. It was one of Laura's books, Laura DeFranco, the publisher. Yeah, and it was really tough. It gets easier as you know, as you well know, but yeah, it's difficult. So I can imagine that that's the case for everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. You work really hard at getting people that you really want in the book and who want to be a part of it. And it's that energy, that accumulated energy. When we did the men's book, of course, it's like herding cats, but there were so many collaborations from that. There are so many things connections that I got out of walking that through with all those men. And for any of you out there, it is on Amazon. It is one of those really telling books about men, and they kind of lay themselves bare. Most collaborations that have written in has been 25 authors, 23 of which are women and a couple of guys, and I'm sometimes that unicorn. Um, but in this book, from burnout to burning bright, I have eight male authors within the cast, um, and they bring a slightly different perspective, and it's really wonderful um, to see all of those voices for everybody that is going through a hard time.
Yeah.
For myself, it always hard to talk about, but it was when my wife was first diagnosed with breast cancer. My youngest daughter was in Boston. We didn't know if she was going to live or die. And after years of taking caregiving, I didn't know which end was up. I didn't know how to process it anymore. I didn't know, when I started out at 19 years old, I got married. At 20, I had my first daughter. By 25, I had three daughters. And I was working three jobs just to make sure so that my wife could stay home to take care of them because they were all young, obviously.
Right.
And it was not how I pictured life was going to be.
Yeah.
I had
Imagine.
grand illusions, but I wanted to, basically have, provide for my family and make sure that they grew up solid. And the caregiving took over, and we had to make just incredibly hard decisions um, for my daughter, and then we had to make hard decisions all the way through Maura's 20-year fight with breast cancer before she eventually lost that. And that's, that's where we come out, and at the end of all of that, I just didn't know who and what I was anymore.
Mm.
I had been dad, I had been the caregiver, I had been um, I was everything to everybody, and I didn't know who I was. And that's hard to find. I I I literally had to basically break everything back down to bare bones, back to my 17, 18-year-old self to find out what it was I really, really wanted out of life.
It's also really hard to admit. I mean, it takes a big person to admit that you're down to those bare bones. Yeah.
It
So
was 40
congratulations.
years, right? 40 years in marriage. And I came out of it and really didn't even have a clue who I was, what I wanted to do. I truly didn't know. And that's where, you come down to um, the guidance that you get. And I had a practitioner, psychotherapist, who I saw on a weekly basis for almost 5 years, who was tough as nails, man, and would not let me get away with the thing. Thankfully, she didn't. We did EMDR. We did, just transgression, not transgression, regression.
Hmm.
Transgressions are a little bit different thing. Um, and it, it just broke me down even further and allowed me to come out really whole. And you met me at that point. I think you really met me at that point where I was feeling like I was a whole person. And we worked together, and it was uh, some of the most fun that I've had in collaboration with anyone because we were able to share. We started to understand one another. Um, I know that you had to have some qualms about this guy that was uh, you're going to be working with, and we interviewed probably what 40 people
Oh, a lot. Yeah.
walking through for the book, and it was just amazing when you spend that much time with somebody and you have that mutual respect. And that's that really came out of that. The process was just amazing. Um,
It was.
and
It
because
was
of that,
really.
I have a lifetime friend
You
who's
do.
sitting right next to me, and that I hold dear,
Yeah. Yeah. Me
honestly.
too. Me too. Yeah. It was a great experience, and yeah. And who knew? You know, we just were sitting around a table, and that was that. But it's really interesting with that, with all that, because obviously that was a huge process for you to get there. And I want to kind of link it up a little bit to the Burning Bright book because you talk a lot about, and I won't give it away obviously, but it kind of gives it away in the title and what you've already what you've already said. Um, when you were not able to strictly look, and these are my words, so please change if they're inappropriate, but you weren't able to look after yourself the way that you needed to be cared for at that particular time. You had
Right.
so many other things and other people that needed you,
Yeah.
and how do you turn your back on all that? And that is that's kind of the crux of your book.
Yeah.
It really is that you can't stop what you're doing because you're going to let someone down, or you come second all the time. You come second.
Yeah. Well, I came about fifth, I think, fifth or sixth um, on that list.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but I was also taught that, which is
Yeah.
interesting. My dad always said he came after my mom, all the kids, all four kids, the dog, and the cat, and then it was dad. And I always thought he was, just being funny until I realized that that's what I was taught, that you sacrifice for everybody else. And that was being a Virgo, and I'm learning more and more about that. It's really a sign of service. My mom did everything for everybody, much to my detriment, as my wife, when we first got married, uh, almost didn't talk to me for 2 months because she said she was not going to raise a child. And my mom was the type that would
Love it.
my mom was the type that I would wear my clothes to school, drop them, drop my clothes next to the bed, get into bed, go to school. When I got back from school, they were already hung up and done in the closet from the day before. My mother was just, she felt that it was her function to serve her
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And she taught me also how to serve, and that service was love. There was an equation there. And that that'll go. And in my case, it went to a bit extreme only because of my circumstances. But when you come out of that, what is left? And that's the question. And that's where I had to find out what was left
Yeah.
and what really was there. And you're absolutely right about that.
You know what? There's also, if I can just jump in for a second, there's also a real, there's a connection between being in service to people and being in service to people, which you have done both. I mean, you are in service in terms of the work that you do all the time.
Hmm.
So, but they're different, obviously.
You're right. It's very different. Before it would be someone would call, I'd put on my cape, I'd fly to the rescue, I'd take care of their problem. And no matter what was going on in my life, if somebody
Yeah.
called, they would call me because they knew they could count on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I fostered that. I did that with my daughters, that anytime they had a problem, they came to me. And much to the detriment of myself, because when I got back, it might be midnight and I hadn't done anything that I needed to do. So I still had to do that. So it was depleting in that respect. And
Yeah.
now the service is from a place of wholeness, from a place of abundance, from a place of really of being grounded, um, and being whole and being able to give and understanding that I can say no.
That was the question I was just going to ask you. What about that piece? Yeah.
I can say no. Okay, starting out, I felt like I abandoned people, and I lost relationships. Some people walked away because they were meant to, I think, and because they were looking for me, because when they needed something done, they'd ask me, I'd get it done. So I was the easy way out. When I didn't reply or I didn't say yes right away, and by the way, I learned that breath, that one breath before responding, and it's enough to activate my brain to say, do you really want to do this? Hold on, is this a good idea? And to be able to just take that breath before responding, because I used to respond right away. Yep, okay, what do you need? Let's go, let's do this. No, that's not the way it should be. Take
Yeah.
into consideration yourself first, what your needs are, if you can do that. And now I give from that place of plenty.
Full. Yes. Yeah. And well done.
Hard,
Well
hard
done.
lesson to learn though.
Well,
Damn,
it
it's a
is
hard
for
lesson.
sure. It is, and you know what? It's I think men and women we both experience that. We maybe experience it a little differently, but we both experience that. I think every human does because that's kind of what we're told all the time. Like make sure that you do this for other people, and and you do it this way, and which is just not. It just doesn't serve us. You know,
No,
your
it really
description,
doesn't.
your
Yeah.
description is the one that should be adopted. Let's just decide that right now. We're just going to write that in the sky. That's the way it's going to be, because you're right. It's being able to say no without feeling guilty. It's being able to acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with us if we don't choose to do something we don't want to. It's okay. And it doesn't mean that we have to be rude or obnoxious or disrespectful.
Right.
It just means we don't want to do it, and that's okay. So I pat you on the back because it's a tough road to walk. Yeah.
Um, it absolutely is, especially from I'm a reformed people pleaser. Um, I still have that impulse still, by the way, does come up. It, it still comes up, and
Sure.
then I have to go, okay, okay, relax, okay, we got this. We can think about this.
Yeah. What's interesting though is that when when you're being asked to do something, I think there's always that moment where you hesitate, and you think about it.
Hmm.
But being able to take that risk brings back so much more to you than just simply saying, well, I'm going to keep the peace and do it anyway. You just get so much back. So much back.
Yeah, and saying no sometimes enables the other person to stand up on their own. It enables them to be able to find another way to do it. Um, Not always the easy way out. The, you know, a more grown-up adult version of, as with my daughters, a grown-up version of problem solving, of taking responsibility, of doing all of that. And I
Mm-hmm.
found that I did a disservice in not allowing my girls, especially, to be able to do a lot of aspects of their life that I was always there for. And just stepping away. And it changes the relationship also,
Yeah.
which is not always easy.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Not at all.
it's it's definitely not easy. But in but I love the relationship you have with your children and grandchildren
Mm.
with as you walk through that. You know, that for me is how I was always raised. Or, we always had cousins and our grandparents around, and it was a pretty tight community, and that's how I always wanted to have that. Nowadays, people live so far apart, you know, and it's not necessarily culturally, collectively, or within the family. You lose something within that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? You can have a piece of it. Maybe you won't have all of it, but there are
Right.
pieces that you take from certain relationships and that you can work with, and obviously the ones that you can't work with, you don't. I just kind of always approached my adult children, I mean, because I'm sure that I gave my my children, I'm sure that I gave them messages that weren't what I may be doing now, what I may wish for them,
Right.
I think we all at some level we bring our own upbringing into what we do, as you said too. And my mother was a huge pleaser. She didn't want to make anybody sad or anybody angry, and so yeah, that was an easy thing to do, really, just to copy what we were taught. But when it comes to my kids and my grandkids now, they're my daughters are adults, and it's always been very, very important to me not to interfere with their adultness.
Right.
They don't need me to tell them anything or to do anything for them. And I keep the door open so that if there's something that they need, that they really truly need, they know that that they can come and talk about it, and whatever comes of it is what comes of it, and but the decisions are theirs. And for my grandkids, Scott, I've told you this last times, it's just about having fun. It's just about having fun. I don't have to, on the off moment, I may have to do a little bit of parenting, but for the most part, it's just, okay,
That's what I.
who's gonna kick the ball first? Who's gonna be in net today? And
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. We've done rock climbing and archery, and um, we've done the like jumping out of an airplane where the wind tunnel where you're floating, and we've done all of those things that they wouldn't necessarily have done. And it's about adventure, it's about experience, it's about
yeah,
doing. Um, you
yeah,
Having kids around when they have phones is very, very tough. So the rule is, so the rule is in the car you can have your phone. When we're out of the car, that's it.
yeah.
We're
Good for
g- we're
you.
gonna we're gonna experience things.
Well, and then you're experiencing one another at the same time,
Yeah,
which is absolutely beautiful. Yeah,
it
it's
absolutely is.
it's difficult. It's a no, I shouldn't say difficult. It's a challenge. It's something. It's kind of that same thing that you were talking about earlier. Just saying yes, no, or whatever. We have to be very consistent with taking care of ourselves, and it has to come up there too. I mean, if we can't just kind of take care of ourselves today and then, oh, tomorrow I think I'm just gonna I'm gonna ignore all that stuff that I really know, and just put my foot in it. So there really is no point. I think we have to be really consistent, yeah, with that care. Yeah.
So so walking through this all, it's really interesting. You have done an awful lot of work with women. You have done a lot of work with um, giving them voice, and with that voice comes the forming of it changes how they see their relationship, how they see themselves, maintaining their boundaries, being able to really express themselves in whatever form that takes. Um, and because I've always found everybody is creative, whether they realize it or not, everybody is creative in one form or fashion, and they do it, whether it's crocheting or bowling or whatever it is, they express themselves physically or through writing, through whatever it is. They have interests, they have hobbies, and I think they forget about that part of themselves, that creative part of making something that wasn't there before. And there's that joy that comes with that sense of satisfaction, that sense of self-expression that they need to be able to show other people. And I think that's the other way that voice comes out is through that creativity. And because you're showing the world who you are.
Yeah. Well, and I think what else comes into play with that, especially when we're trying to make changes and, look more inward than outward.
Hmm.
Because as you know, when we've had something happen in our past, even, past lives, this family, the last one, whatever, we want to stay silent. We want to protect ourselves. The nervous system wants protection, doesn't want to fire
Mm.
up necessarily. So knowing that, and knowing that our first response is to be quiet and silenced, and then you walk
Mm.
away and you feel like, excuse the expression, but complete shit when you're done. It takes that it takes more than simply telling somebody that they have, it's important that you use your voice because it's so much bigger than that. There's so much more learning to learning and consideration for the self
Mm.
to get there. So while I think it's part of how confusing it can get when you are kind of in the middle of this, because there's so much of the traditional practical human response that is, just do it, just say it, just do it to say it. Again, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier with honoring who you are.
Yeah,
That's kind of first, last, and everything in my book is honoring who you are, and you've
you're
done that.
absolutely right. Many times I've gotten kicked under the table because I pursue rounds of questions with people, maybe beyond what my partner would say was um, the boundaries of society. I ask the tough questions. I do hospice work. One of the things I do Reiki, and I do hospice work with Reiki, but also companionship for those that are transitioning. And being able to have those discussions that they sometimes can't even have with their own family.
Yeah.
What do they believe? What do they feel? How do they see things? What would they like? Yeah, all of those things that maybe because of having been a caregiver, you're more worried about, when was the last bowel movement, and are they clean, and when are they going to get fed, and how are we going to take care of the medication, and what are, trying to handle everything that's going on just for survival. And I come in and I ask, how are you really doing today? How do you feel about where you are now? How do you view death? How do you want it to go? And having those discussions lends itself to some really surprising answers. Um, and overall, in doing the hospice work, I've often felt, actually always felt, that I get more out of the interaction than I'm able to give, the comfort I'm able to give. And and that's because I never thought I would do that. It took me 5 years after my wife passed before I even looked into it again. And because I wanted to honor her. And it took me 40 hours in order to 40 hours in order to um, of testing and through their program before I could offer my time as a volunteer.
That's tough work.
Tough work, but you know what? Some of the most rewarding stuff I've ever done.
I bet.
Um, so this all ties together in this aspect, and that is the reason for the book was because at that moment when I was asked to lead a book, he said, if you were to lead a book, what would it be about? I said, burnout. I said, well, because the number of people I was talking to, because of the way the world is changing, all the different things that weren't, all the paradigms are changing, all the things that we thought couldn't happen are happening, all those things that we thought were set in stone are changing. Um, the world is not the same place that we knew 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it becomes overwhelming because we don't know what ground to stand on. There's always an earthquake going on somewhere, and our feet are shaking, and we feel kind of lost. And that happens in our life um, through decisions, through circumstances, or through our basically falling down to the bottom of our ism. When you hit true bottom. There's a lot of time when um, they say, well, people won't change until they're at the very bottom, when there's nowhere else to go. And then they realize, I think I need to do something different. What my hope is, by the way, for this book is that people understand they don't have to wait till they get there in order to make changes.
Yeah. And it's an incredible book. I still have not seen all the chapters, and I do feel very, very honored to have written that forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and I think people should not just walk to walk to Amazon, not just get on their computer at Amazon, get there fast and get this book. It's I think it's one of those things, I kind of see burnout as being one of those things that everybody can talk about, but very few people really know how to manage it. So I think this is going to be such an important gift to the world. I really do.
One of the lines that I wrote was that, you know, it may take you a half an hour to read this story, but the author lived it and it took years. So have be grateful that you could learn these lessons in that short a time.
Mm.
And that's the thing about um, the collaborative books. There are 25 different stories. There are 25 different perspectives. There are 25 circumstances. When you go to look for an answer for a question, if you could get 25 teachers to offer a tool to be able to help with what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
what greater gift is that? There's always going to be one, two, or three stories that are going to touch your heart. And I want to really point to one, and name is Dianna Colton, who wrote in this, and she has ALS. She's was in hospice and actually got out of hospice and decided she wasn't going to do that, and works her butt off every day with physical therapy, occupational therapy, to in order to function at a high level, as high as she possibly can, for her four kids, for her husband, and to live life at the absolute fullest. This woman stole my heart. I
Mm.
lost um, a very good friend and my cousin to ALS. I saw how rapidly and how it just destroys the body. And she is just living. Every time I see her, by the way, she has a different color hair.
I love it.
Anywhere between orange, purple, um, green. She has tattoos all over. She gets them to celebrate days. It might be that it's Tuesday. She is just one of those people that is irrepressible in that aspect and is a shining star for anybody going through anything like this.
Mm. Wow. And that's just one of your authors.
That's one story. I have doctors, I have financial advisors, I have authors, I have Wiccan practitioners, um, I have herbalists. There are so many different people from so many different perspectives that have been able to share what they do, how they do it, their story, to be able to come out on the other side. And that's where we're talking about is coming out on this other side and becoming whole.
Yes. Becoming whole. That's the big one. Yeah. Yeah. And I think this book is going to do it. I'm very, very excited. And I'm excited for all of you, all of the authors. It's just, yeah, because it's so common and so basic. And yet it isn't in the learning, obviously, right? It's time, it's energy, it's all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's gonna be amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good job.
But being a part of it, you know, I just am really honored that you offered to do the forward, and simply because you know me well, and that that in and of itself is a gift. But I really thought that you put a really beautiful um, introduction into the book to allow people to understand what the process is, what they're about to see.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad that that's how how it's perceived because that was certainly my goal behind it. So thank you. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you for being here. And thank you for this beautiful book. But that's not your only book.
That's it.
I mean, you
Well, we
have
can do it. We
many.
can do a blurb. We can do a blurb on it. But Bina DeLevio is out of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. She's a psychotherapist, and she would ask her male patients, "When did you become a man?" Now that is a loaded question for most men. First of all, they don't get asked that very often. And then on the other part of that is not many people listen. So she and I have developed a 7 questions to walk through that define when they became a man, when they felt they did. I've had men who were 60 years old who said, I think I'm just getting there. I have um, so many different stories. There will be 100 interviews, and it talks about how men view what being a man means, who their role models were, what their trials and tribulations were. And the funny part is, the last question is, and what is the role of a woman?
Mm.
And that in itself, most of them get very deer in the headlight eyes and want to say, well, it's not for me to say.
Don't
What
dare.
does that mean to you? And that's when they get very thoughtful. Men don't talk about these things mainly because they're not asked and because they're not put in a position to be asked that. And they are very thankful to be able to tell their stories. And that book will be coming out the end of 2026. And it's just dynamic because we've interviewed people from all over the world, and the similarities are really amazing. Doesn't matter where they grow up.
Wow. There are also big similarities between those two books. You know, I can't imagine that for Burning Bright, for instance, I don't imagine that it's any different for a man to speak up. You know, and we found that with the men's book too,
Yep,
didn't we? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
But being able to be hold space to be able to have people be heard, to be seen, to really feel their voice, really feel their story, be able for them to be able to tell it in a safe space where they can be vulnerable, where they can say, at this moment in my life, I was scared shitless. I didn't know what to do. Most people don't want to admit that. They don't want
Yeah,
to admit that they didn't have it all together, right?
yeah.
So this is you're right. I hadn't looked at it that quite that way, but it is holding space for people to be able to tell their story, and that's a blessing for me.
And that's what you started with today, right? And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest healer, in my opinion, my humble opinion. You know, is just that being able to tell your story and being able to in within that story to be able to acknowledge um, who you are,
Absolutely.
which is, you know, and you have offered that to so many people. It's really quite lovely, and I don't think that that has anything to do with any of your training or, you know, anything like that. It's who you are. It's absolutely who you are. Yeah,
Well,
it's that
hopefully we can
connection to
get more voices
humanity.
out there. We can get more voices out there to be able to have those stories heard.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So, what is the very, and I won't keep you too much longer, but what is the your very favorite part of your work?
Is watching the transformation that people get. when I'm doing work with clients is those aha moments. I've gotten a lot of those, whether it's through travel, through writing, through processes, through classes. You get those, but for them to see the transformations they can make, how they integrate everything. I've had women who've woken up and said, you know what? I'd be better off without him. My gosh. I've had women who've um, come back to me and said, thank you. You saved my marriage because now we talk. Now I understand. Now I can not be so, I'm not judging him. I'm listening to him. I have had people who have had chronic pain, chronic throughout their lives, who have been able to manage it much, much better. And sometimes it goes away because of the emotional impact, what trauma has done to their body and how they hold it and how they have not let it go. And it cripples them. And that for me is the most satisfaction that I get is watching people being able to walk fully upright, whole, and know who they are.
Yeah. Thank you for describing it like that, because I think that's a really important piece for people that are going to be reading either one of your books. Is that connection between emotional state and pain? That's not, not everybody understands that. So, to know that you're going to be helping yourself, you're not just doing what you know you really need, you're actually helping your physical body at the same time. So thank you
Exactly.
for saying that. Yeah.
And to be able to listen to your body also. It's pretty wise.
Yeah. Yeah, totally is. All right. So is there anything else that you want to share while we're here?
Just May 19th, From Burnout to Burning Bright comes out. Collaboration of 25 authors. They are exceptional. The stories are, they can make you laugh, they'll make you cry. A couple will make you cringe. And it's really about understanding who you are through when you're being tested the most and knowing that you can come out on the other side because they have. And that's the most important part.
Wow. Could you briefly describe that 5G method? Because I think it kind of falls really nicely right here.
So in doing the work, I've really been called on to formalize it, and because I never could. I've had a lot of modalities that I've used, and I do things intuitively, but it really comes down to gratitude first. When we're thankful for what we have, what we are, who is in our lives, it changes our perspective. And then to get grounded into your body, to be able to start listening again to your body. When you're a kid, you listen to your body all the time. You fall down, you scrape your knee, you cry because your knee hurts. Okay, when you get older, you scrape your knee, it hurts, you just keep going, you ignore it. So we're taught to just kind of walk through it instead of listening to our bodies. Guidance. When we're quiet enough, when we are quiet enough, there is that soft voice, that little quiet voice. And if you hear that, it's not going to steer you wrong. The mind is very loud. That ego self is very, very loud, and it will drown out an awful lot of what is meant for you. I call it guardrails. Oh my God, because a lot of people don't like boundaries at all. At least the guardrails are there to be able to keep you on your path because you want to go in a certain way. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you're going to end up. But when you have an understanding of where you want to go and you put boundaries up for people, for yourself, for what you want, all of a sudden things go in the same direction. Everything's going in the same direction. And when everything flows that well, you are in abundance for yourself. And that's when generosity comes out. And it can come out in small ways. And I have always felt, no matter my position, that I have been in abundance, that I have been able to give of myself, to be able to give to other people, and to give a hand to somebody who needs help up. Generosity takes many forms, whether it's volunteering, whether it's giving of yourself in any way, in small ways, and it feels good, and it has an outward ripple. So when we get those five things going in your life, all of a sudden it looks a lot brighter. And that's where we all want to be. Finding joy, maintaining curiosity about things. We lose curiosity, unfortunately, when after we're children, because we learn. Learning is curiosity. And that's really, really powerful, curiosity. So being able to maintain that, everything looks much brighter and much different. And by the way, these are huge changes, but they're done one click at a time. Micro steps every day, developing that so that you develop rituals of things you do and you don't even think about them anymore, so that you can maintain that, so you can maintain the integrity of your body.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. I love that. That's a process right there. That's a path that people can follow. That I always found that was very, and you know this about me, but I always found that having a process that people can walk through and adopt what works for them in it, however it works for them at that particular time. I think that that's really, really powerful. So congratulations. I think that's great. It's awesome.
Well, you always have been an inspiration, so I've followed your lead.
Oh, aren't you a dear? Well, thank you. That's very kind. And I just want to kind of wrap up by saying that this is really like everything that you've talked about today and everything that you're doing, not just the burnout book, not just the, when did you become a man book, but all the books that you've been part of, all the work that you've done, and certainly a lot of the collaborations that you and I have done. You have done all that from a place of needing and wanting that human connection. And I say need in a really good way. That human connection, like honoring that human connection is so valuable, and so it just holds people, holds us, and it holds somebody else too. So I just want to say thank you for that. I certainly have felt it as your friend. And I know other people in our tribe have as well. And I know your clients definitely feel it. And people who read these books definitely will feel them as well. Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate you bringing me on and being able to have the time to really talk about this. It's always fun with you.
Oh, thanks. It's always fun to gab anyway, right? Okay, so listeners, this has been Scott Holmes on the Roadshow, and it's been a great gab. It's just been great, and I want you to remember that these two books are coming out, one before the other. Make sure that you keep an eye out. All of Scott's his email, his website, all that kind of stuff is all in the show notes, so you can find it all there. Look him up. Look and see what he's doing. You've heard him. He does all kinds of different things, all kinds of different practices, and his heart is really in this. So check him out some more. Find out exactly when that book is coming out. You said did you say the 27th?
May 19th.
May 19th.
May 19th.
Okay, 19th.
Yes,
I was going to say the 27th, so I'm glad I didn't take that farther. May the 19th, get on it. If you want to be an early reviewer, get a hold of Scott, find that email address, and get a hold of him, and he'll hook you up. It's going to be an awesome book, and I can't wait for it to come out and let the world see it. So thank you, Scott. I'm glad that you were here, and we'll do it again soon.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody out there, whoever that is listening.
Bye for now, everybody. If you like today's podcast, hit subscribe at the bottom on your way out, and come find me at cravemorelife.com for even more DIY ass kicking.